My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entre Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. Tom Reynolds, welcome to Entre Architect Podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Tom is an artist, architectural designer, community activist, and a TikToker. And if you don't know what a TikToker is, stay tuned. Currently managing a small design firm focusing on community redevelopment and affordable housing design, Tom is president of Green Stories LLC, a full-function minority-run architecture, design, and digital media firm for the 21st century. Their passion is to make great design that matters. For web design, that means focusing on government and campaign websites that connect the user to the candidate or government agency. For digital media, design that matters is accessible public works. And for architecture, design that matters aims to fill a social void. And if you follow Tom on TikTok, you know what that all means, because I follow Tom on TikTok. If you're not on TikTok, and it's not just a bunch of dancing girls, it's actually a social media site that's taking the world. It is everybody is on TikTok, all generations, all creeds and colors. It's all there on TikTok. It's a really interesting social media platform. So I want to talk a little bit with Tom about that. But before we jump into TikTok and how that works and why it works and all the stuff that comes along with that, I want to know your story, Tom. I want you to go back to where you discovered architecture, who or what inspired you to become an architect.
Yeah. So I think my first entrance into architecture is pretty similar to a lot of other people, which is toys. I had gotten a Lincoln Log set as a Christmas gift, and I had this playroom, and I just went wild. I built this whole Western city, had like little buildings, had a place like for the log tie for tying up your horses in trough, and then I started connecting them with my model train sets from one village to the next, and that was sort of my entrance into it. And I started thinking back on it even just now, is bringing back some funny memories, because I went a little overboard with it. And one of my semesters at school, I had this professor who, we had a simple project of designing something for this small space. And I started redoing the streetscape and it's like all of this had to deal with getting to the site. He's like, you get the more is more award. And I like now making that connection. But so I think that was my first entrance. And then my father was an engineer, and I used to love all his tools that he had for his technical drawing and the books he had. And he was an NJIT in Newark that in the 80s, and learning programming and stuff. And I'm like taking all of his old books and like trying to learn basic and putting it all together and sort of finding my own way in it. And then my other uncle, so we all lived in this 2-family house when my family came here from Jamaica. So my 2 uncles and aunt, grandparents were in the upstairs apartment. Myself, my mom, and I were in the downstairs apartment. And so my one uncle is an electrical engineer. My father's an electrical engineer. My other uncle was a contractor. So like every weekend there was like something happening, something being built. And
so you could not avoid it.
Could not avoid it. Like combining the architecture and or the building and the engineering. And it's like, then I came out of the black sheep in the architecture world.
Did you know what architecture was in terms of a profession, that there were architects and you know what they did?
No, I don't think I learned about the profession until maybe sophomore, junior year of high school. And I was doing the NAACP's ACSO program, which is this, let's see if I can get the acronym right, Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics.
Very good. Good memory.
Yeah. And I was competing in music composition and poetry. And the woman who was running the program was like, you have an interest in drawing, you have an interest in building, why don't you try competing in architecture? And I was like, well, I don't know what this. She's like, oh, well, here's this, and I'll connect you with this Black architect I know. And so after a couple of months of working on a train station with him, I competed and won the silver medal at the state competition. And that's was like, oh wait, I kind of know some of this stuff, and there's a way to use it and put it into work. Um, and so my grandmother, who I was living at the time, was like, well, why are you going to go into architecture? You like these other things. And so she's like, well, you're going to go to the summer program at NJIT for architecture. So I signed up. And apparently I was the only person who signed up because they canceled it. We already paid for it. So I did computer science that summer. But I was sort of, at this point, sort of hard-headed and determined. I'm like, no, I'm going to do architecture now. So when I was looking at colleges, I was looking for places that had something in the computer world, something in architecture, and something in music. And NJIT had a new digital music major, and they had the computer programming, which I liked, and they had architecture. I was like, okay, well, I'll start in architecture and let's see what happens. First semester, loved it. And there's just like no turning back from there. That was just it.
And so you did architecture and computers at NJIT?
I did architecture and actually had originally a minor in physics. But then, yeah, the art program's just pretty heavy. So I dropped that and just kept with architecture and sort of found ways to combine the things I like about computers, programming, trying to find ways to let use 3D modeling and setting up parameters and let the program sort of put things together and see what comes out of it. And since then, I've always been interested in how do you combine technology and architecture in some interesting ways. So using the drone to create point clouds and LiDAR scans off the iPad and meshing them together, and still do some of the stuff where I'll set up sort of these gravity parameters in like 3D Max and shoot pilots at them and let them see where they go and see how the program organizes by some parameter I set up. So I find all that stuff interesting. And then also now there's like using generative design to come up with like layouts and stuff in interesting ways. It's a crazy time. And yet at the end of the day, it's like you still have to sit down with this information, this sort of knowledge of the field and construction, and this computer generated something and come out with a building or something out of that. And that just fascinates me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing what we're living in an amazing time, right? With the technology that we have and what we can do and the way we can connect. It's fascinating to me too. I love, and I never got into the design side of it, but I love the technology of the communication.
Yeah.
Right? And the tools that we have to be better at what we do.
Yeah.
I recognize that we're living in a time that is moving really quickly and evolving very quickly. And the way we communicate and we talk is changing rapidly. And those things fascinate me. But I wanted to just connect the dot. So you come out of NJIT, graduate from NJIT,
yep.
And now you're on your own. So what happened in between there? Did you go work for some firms between there?
Yeah. After my freshman year at NJIT, I shot out a bulk email to every firm on the New Jersey AIA list. I'm like, hey, looking for a job. Who's got one?
What year was that?
2003. And I got an email back from this guy who's like, Tom Reynolds, Troop 12 Montclair. I was in Boy Scout.
Yep.
And he's like, come on in. I got a spot for you. Ended up being my old patrol leader's father. And we worked out of his attic for a couple of years before doing interior tenant fit outs for a large real estate development company and commercial real estate development company, until about 4 years in when we moved into their office and handled everything for North Jersey, Southern New York, and the eastern part of Pennsylvania. So I was there for 9 years. And it was interesting because interior tenant fit out was not exciting. I'll start there. It wasn't exciting.
And very repetitive, right?
Yeah.
Same thing over and over.
Outlets, lights. Wall, doors, outlet, light.
Yep.
But there's a level of specificity, and there's a level of sort of knowing the building code really well, so that when a large food company wants to get an office with a test kitchen, it's like, okay, I need to understand the fire separations, the air hand. And my boss, he was on that. That was his specialty. And then being able to fit, 10,000 square foot of program into a 5,000 square foot space, I learned a lot from that, um, which really became useful sort of going out on my own and sort of knowing I want to focus on affordable housing and focus on things that are revitalizing neighborhoods. Like, okay, first we're dealing with smaller sites, smaller budgets, and it's like I got to fit all these wishes and dreams into a smaller package.
Yeah.
And that job prepared me for that.
So when did you go out on your own?
I went out on my own May 14th, 2013.
So quite a long time.
Yeah.
And did you start working on community development and multifamily housing right away, or did you sort of evolve into that?
I started, so I had a neighbor who was a trustee at his church. And my first project was designing a handicap entrance to that church for him. And sort of then taking that to dealing with all the accessibility issues of this church, which connected me to another church, which connected me to a nonprofit that handled, that was a land trust for affordable housing, which connected me to a developer that does affordable housing, and doing a lot of rehabs in Newark, New Jersey, East Orange, Irvington, the sort of forgotten suburbs of New York. And it was really interesting just in getting to meet the contractors, the developers, the people who play in these spaces and how they fund these projects, how they, they're never working with enough money and they're never working with enough time, and just trying to figure out how do we create the best product. And that's been sort of my journey, just like getting hands-on sometimes, and not just handing over the plans, but like meeting with the inspectors, getting on site and trying to figure out we gotta dealing with one now where I got to the building and the building's been abandoned for at least 10 years minimum. There's a calendar inside the building that's still there, and it's set for 2000, and I think it was 2009. So that put, it's been there for a while. The roof is gone. The exterior, this guy bought it from the city as a long-term abandoned building, and he was kind of excited. We opened the door for the first time, and while I'm walking up, I'm like, something doesn't look right about the side of this building. It's like that, and I thought it was leaning on the house next to it. And then he opens the door. Everything, all the floors, the only thing that's standing is the staircase. Everything is gone inside. The house is literally bowing and leaning the two buildings next to it.
Did they think that they were going to renovate it and use it?
They thought they were going to renovate it and sort of get it as is. And we tried something at first where we did a bunch of like these cables across the building and like had a bunch of guys just slowly winching the thing back into place. But because it'd been open for so long, some of them started pulling out of the rotted sills, and it's like, all right, we got to take this thing down. We can't even try to salvage it at this point. Yeah. But just trying to come up with creative solutions for some of these things. And it's been fun.
Yeah, it sounds like very much a very interesting work that you do, and I've been following your work. I've been following what you've been doing, and I've been following that project because you've been documenting that project on TikTok.
Yep.
When did you start doing TikTok?
My first introduction to TikTok was my wife's 16-year-old, well, now 16, he was probably 14 or 13 at the time, cousin who, funny, I actually have there he is right there.
There he is.
A little, he was doing a dance during one of the summer birthday party things, and I was like, "That's the Macarena." He didn't call it the Macarena, but it was the Macarena. I knew that dance. It was part of my childhood. And he's like, "Oh, you know this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "Do it with me. We'll do it on TikTok together." I said, "TikTok? What's that?" He starts showing me TikTok and the app, and it's like him and his friends, and they're, like you said, they're all dancing. That's all they're doing.
Right.
And I joined so that I could see his videos and also see the one that we did together. And then TikTok is interesting because, Instagram, Facebook, you're connecting with people that you know. Like, you have to know the person in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
LinkedIn, you get that second level, like start suggesting maybe one step away. But TikTok's algorithm is almost fully about introducing to people and things you would have never seen before, and just saying, "Oh, do you like that? Oh, you don't like that? Okay, how about this?" And so it started pushing me towards lawyers, doctors, and other professionals. Then it was like, "Hey, by the way, here's this guy, architect Russell out of Tennessee, and check out his stuff." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wait, architecture, somebody's doing that? That's cool." And I'm watching his videos, and they're like, they're simple to me, and like the information he's giving is such, relatively, I won't say basic, but it's like, it's stuff that we take for granted that we know. We take it for granted that we know how big a door is, or how what the height of a window should be from the floor, or stuff like that. And I was like, oh wait, I could do this too. And I signed up a business account as TikTok Architect, and I just started sharing this wealth of knowledge that I've accumulated. And it's been really interesting to see how many people are interested in it.
Yeah, it's amazing to watch you grow, because I've been following you, I don't know, probably for a few months, and I discovered you there. I know that you're a member of EntreArchitect community and you're active there, but I discovered you on TikTok and then realized that you were a member of the community. And so I've been following you and a bunch of other people who are doing it. And I have an EntreArchitect account that someone else is running for me. And I have a personal account, but I haven't done anything. I have not done anything on TikTok, but I look at it every day because I am entertained by it. I'm informed by it. It's very interesting. And I check your feed out every day. And I really like what you're doing. I like that you are telling the story of architecture, telling your story specifically. So people can follow you, what you're doing. You can teach them. You can provide lessons. Sometimes those are funny. Sometimes they're pretty deep. All right. And so you're teaching the world about your point of view, about your life, of all aspects of your life. And you're making a difference because of that, because you can see that your followers are growing. And so other people are listening and following your story. And so you're building this platform that you can share what you do and a lot of what you do is really important. And so by being able to share that knowledge, there are people out there who are learning things about architecture, learning things about being a Black architect, learning things about how buildings stand up and fall down. So that technology, we're talking about technology, without that technology, right? Without those social media tools, specifically TikTok, where TikTok's algorithm, invites people to see things that they actually didn't reach out to look for. It's just sending you information that you're interested in. And if you show the algorithm that you're interested, it'll show you more of that. And so if you're interested in architecture, it'll show you a bunch of different architecture. And then maybe it'll go to art, and maybe it'll move to buildings, and it'll and as long as you keep interacting with it, it will customize the things you see. And so it's really interesting. Let's take a break to thank our sponsors for their support of this episode. As architecture demand increases toward pre-pandemic levels and beyond, how are you and your architecture firm keeping up? ARCAT is here to help. ARCAT.com offers several free tools to help architecture and design firms like yours get work done faster. Use ARCAT's powerful search engine to find the right products for your projects, and download BIM, CAD, and specifications right there on the same page without needing to pay or register. It's free. ARCAT.com also offers product videos, catalogs, green reports, product certification information, outline and short form specification generation, and so much more. Visit ARCAT.com today. ARCAT.com is your one-stop solution to help increase your productivity and get more projects done faster. That's ARCAT.com. ARCAT.com. FreshBooks makes it simple to send invoices, post your expenses automatically, track your time for your whole team by project, and get organized with financial reports, communication, and notifications. My favorite feature in FreshBooks is the automated invoice reminders. I think sending invoices and getting paid is one of the biggest barriers to our success as entrepreneur architects. Who has the time? But if we don't send out the invoices, we don't get paid, right? FreshBooks makes it easy to send out your invoices and get paid fast, online, with a click of a button. And when your client doesn't pay you on time, FreshBooks will send them a friendly email reminder through a simple system that you control. Sign up for a free 30-day unrestricted trial and get ready for the simplest way to be more productive, organized, and most importantly, get paid faster. Go to entrearchitect.com/freshbooks and enter EntreArchitect in the How Did You Hear About Us section. That's entrearchitect.com/freshbooks. Please visit our platform sponsors today and thank them for supporting you, the EntreArchitect community. I understand how you did it and why you did it. How do you do it, right? Because you have a lot going on, and you post every day. So how do you actually integrate it into what you do?
I think what's important to me with TikTok is trying to be as authentic as possible. So very often, actually I have two accounts. So I got my personal one, which I do a whole lot of very well edited dad joke content, stuff with my daughter.
I follow that too, but I don't follow it as close as your TikTok architect.
And it's interesting because that one doesn't do too well. But the architecture one where I won't say no effort, but much less effort, because I just grab my phone. I'm just okay, I'm here, I'm doing this. This is happening right now. These are the issues. These are the solutions we came up with. That seems to be doing really well. And so I've got to constantly remind myself, it's more of it's almost like you're working on a construction project, and to make sure that your liability is covered, you're just doing all the documentation, you're filling out the paperwork. This is sort of my version of that. It's just live documenting. So even today, I went down to Newark City Hall because I was trying to deal with a permit issue. I was I actually know a fair amount about this building, the style and the history. I'm going to do just a video on that. And so just walking in, I'm okay, this is a Beaux-Arts building, 1902. It's got these beautiful stained glass roofs, and let's back up and you can see the gold dome. And even more fun, it's been in 3 Batman movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that you make those connections, right? That you're teaching about architecture, but then you bring in, popular culture as well to tie it all together.
Yeah. So it's just for me, it's just regurgitating what I know, because we walk around and we see things and we know something about it anyway, and probably more than we'll call them the average person. We might as well just record it. And that's all I'm doing.
I would not be surprised if you are inspiring some young architects, kids that didn't know what architecture was and now follow you, and they're I want to do that.
It's really awesome, the messages and the comments I've been getting, especially the private messages. People who didn't know about architecture, knew about it and didn't know how to get into it, trying to understand, trying to navigate, trying to get through school. Some that have just finished school and trying to figure out what their next move is going to be. There's a young Black architect out of, I want to say she's in Kentucky, who is just hey, I have not seen another Black architect. Will you be my mentor? Will you help me out in this? And just, yeah, sure. Let's figure this out. Let's get through this. Let's get you licensed. And it's been so much fun and reinvigorating. And for me, it's been this, a daily sort of excitement to get out and do what I'm going to do anyway. I've realized from the interviews I've done with other architects, we can be so insular.
Yeah.
And, we put our head down and we just start thinking about what we're doing in front of us, and we don't share that. And there's a whole generation of people in the field or wanting to get in the field who are looking for someone to share what they were doing. And we're just so used to just grabbing the plans, redlining them, especially the solos. I mean, we're probably the worst. You could drive down the road and pass 10 of one person's building and not know it. And all the issues that come into making it happen, from start to finish, from zoning or initial design, dealing with the client. And we all have great stories that come with that. And I think being able to share that with people, with especially those interested in becoming architects, is important. So, and some of them are funny, some are painful, some are. I've had stories where I'm going to deal with a drawing issue, and the building inspector looks at me. He's just like, and he makes assumptions about who I am. And I'm trying to tell him, it's like, no, I'm the guy who did these. I'm the architect who made these. And he's like, oh, you're the architect. I didn't. It's like, I'm not the contractor. I'm here in a suit and tie. I made an appointment. I spoke to you on the phone. And yet you still have these preconceived notions. Then I've had other ones where I've got funny stories. I mean, some of them, one of my favorites, a little sexist, but it's this husband and wife who are building a house for themselves. And they're immigrants. And so the husband meets with me alone. We come up with a plan. I send it to him. We sit down. He's like, oh, I love this. I love this. But, before we say yes, I got to bring it back to my wife. And he comes back. He's like, Mr. Thomas, my wife, she likes the plans, but she wants to make a couple changes. And I'm like, why don't we all sit down together? He's like, no, I know what she wants. I know. We're going back and forth I think we went back and forth for 3 months. And I'm like, just all of us, let's sit down and go through this together. And those sort of stick with me. And I wish somebody could have told me more about what the experience of actually practicing was like before getting in. So I probably would have left the job I was at earlier.
Yeah. I think it's so important for us to be telling our stories as architects. For all of us, right? For me to be able to tell my story, for you to be able to tell your story, so others can hear those stories. So some can relate to us and maybe be inspired. Some can learn from experiences that you or I may have that others didn't know, right? Or didn't recognize or ignored.
Yeah.
And now we're shedding light on them. Social media and technology is doing that. You see the rapid change because of the tools that we have and the ways that we can communicate and shed a light on things that have been hidden in the darkness for a long time. And so it's fascinating to see what these tools can do. And when you think TikTok, right? You think TikTok, how is TikTok going to change the world? Or how is TikTok going to improve the profession? But it is, right? It literally is changing things by the way you and others, what you and others are doing.
Yeah. I love, so recently Javier Fuentes, he just left his job yesterday to start his own practice. And he documented his process in deciding he wanted to leave and go on his own. He's documenting that leaving, going from a mid-sized firm to solo, and I'm really excited to see where that next step is going to be. I think it's inspiring to me because sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I was there, and I'll reach out to them and be like, hey, make sure you do this or watch out for and it's I don't know. It's just like it's exciting. It's just so exciting, and having a place where I don't even have to leave my bed to engage with people who are in the same world I'm in or interested in it. Having fun conversations, tagging people in videos, sharing them, learning some exciting things. So I'm having a conversation with someone right now where we're discussing Georgian revival versus colonial revival, and are they different? And then pulling out my old history of architecture books to see if there is a difference.
Do you do any other social media as focused as you do TikTok?
Maybe Instagram. I find a lot of other social media to be difficult for me to stay focused on. I know I have ADHD. I've been diagnosed and I've been working with that. Instagram is one because it could be very visual. Mm-hmm. TikTok is just so easy for me because it's just quick 60-second video at most. YouTube was a little harder for me to make work. There's a lot of, I guess you would call it, additional advertising. You have to sort of put in marketing yourself to find that audience.
Yeah.
Facebook, I know Facebook owns a lot of it owns Instagram, their WhatsApp, but I find it really hard to make work for me and the way I process the internet. Um, I've got my circle of friends, and I'm really just sharing to them. And the big joke that especially my really close friends have, is that I need more architect friends, and TikTok's been able to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting the communities that are built on TikTok, because I
Yeah,
follow a lot. At this point probably follow thousands of people, and you see these communities being built up around these people, and a lot of these people who are on every day, like they start to have relationship, right? You start to build a relationship with that person, and when they are happy and they have good things happen, they celebrate together as a community. And when they struggle and something bad happens, they're there to console and to support.
yeah,
And you see that happening, and those are real, true relationships that are being built. And so it is, and like I said before, it is every corner of the world is there, right? So there's every age, every creed, every color, everybody is there, and because it serves you what you're interested in, you will find community there. So it's really interesting. What's your plans for the future? Do you sort of have a plan on where you want TikTok to go and what you want your architecture firm to do, or are you just going to roll with it and see where it goes?
TikTok I'm going to roll with and just see what happens. I have topics I want to hit. I've got things I want to do. So I started for Black History Month interviewing Black architects.
Yeah, very
And
interesting. I learned a lot.
along the way, I think it was when I was on my fourth or fifth Black female architect, I realized I hit 1% of all of them. So I changed the goal now. It's like, let's see how many I can interview as long as I'm here, and try and get as many as possible. Um, have topics I want to talk about. So I want to get deeper into gentrification. I think there's a lot of misconception as to certain housing styles automatically equaling gentrification,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a lot more nuanced. And I was previously the president of an NAACP chapter, a local one, and I got to see how housing policy plus educational policy and transportation, how all these things get interconnected, and how do we advocate for them in effective ways. And I want to be able to share some of that. My practice, I think I'm starting to hit like a sweet spot right now where I get to do the affordable housing and neighborhood building that I really like for developers who have a real interest in areas and making them survive. Um, and I've also been doing some things that are starting and very early stages, so you'll be hearing more of it, but like pushing into more of that public realm, which is really exciting. There's a potential small museum based around a race riot that I'm sort of trying to get my hands in. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
And doing some really cool restaurants. So there's one in Montclair we're putting a retractable glass roof on, which that'll be fun.
It'll be interesting to follow you on TikTok. If anybody wants to follow Tom, it's TikTok Architect. You can just download TikTok and search for TikTok Architect, and you'll find him. You can subscribe and follow him, and follow those stories. Before we head out here, Tom, I want to ask you the one thing that I ask everybody. What's one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
Say no. I think it's really important. There's sort of, to me, it seems like there's two types of people who get into business. Those who have the means to support themselves through creating the vision, setting the groundwork. A lot of times they don't need the same level of help. They just need a good mentor. But for the other people who don't have that, who are sort of grabbing everything that comes their way, there's a point in which you can't take everything. You took on 10 decks for pennies and it got you through the last few months, but then somebody's going to come along and offer you that $1 million house, and you're going to say, I can't do decks anymore. So being able to say no, being able to sort of catch on to some of those signs that you're not being respected the way you should be are really important. I always joke around with my interns. It's like, if anyone comes to you and says, I've got more jobs for you, run.
That's right.
So, learning to say no is really important. And I think especially those that are at that cusp, when they find themselves saying no to projects that they in their gut feel is wrong, it'll work out where something better shows up.
100% agree with you. Yeah, it's exactly how we started our firm. And big things that actually there were situations where it wasn't about us saying no, it was about others saying no. And we thought the world was going to end because we lost that big job. And then right around the corner was another big job that filled that gap that we could not have taken if we had gotten the other job. And so it all works out the way it should work. It's that's wisdom right there that you're talking about right there. Tom Reynolds is his name. Green Stories is the firm. GreenStoriesLLC.com is the website. TikTok Architect on TikTok. Go check it out. Go sign up for TikTok. Just be warned, you will become addicted to it. It is highly addictive. But it's really, if you're looking at the good stuff, you're going to get more good stuff. If you look at the bad stuff, you're going to get more of the bad stuff. That's the way the algorithm works. If you're getting a whole lot of girls dancing, it's because you're watching a whole bunch of girls dancing. So just be warned. TikTok is powerful, and it is definitely worth looking at. There are a lot of people my age, 51, I'm now, that are in the closet about TikTok. They're watching TikTok every day, but nobody's talking about it. Go subscribe. It's a great tool, and I encourage you to go use it like Tom's using it. Go share your stories, however you want to share your stories. TikTok is a great way to do that. Like Tom said, take it with you, push the button, record what you're doing, share it to the world. Tom, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you for coming on and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
If you liked this episode of Entre Architect Podcast, please share a rating, write a review, and share a link to this episode with a friend. That's how Entre Architect Podcast will grow to serve thousands more architects just like you. Thanks to our sponsors, FreshBooks and ARCAT, for their support of this episode. Links to our sponsors and all the resources we discussed today are available at the show notes for this episode, found at entrearchitect.com/podcast. Entre Architect is a member of the Gable Media Podcast Network. Gable Media is curated thought leadership for an audience dedicated to building a better world. Listen and subscribe to all the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABL media.com. And check out Entre Architect Academy membership. Ready-to-edit business resources, live monthly business training for architects, a supportive architect community, and Simple Systems, our business system program developed for you, the small firm architect. It's all waiting for you at Entre Architect Academy membership, including AIA continuing education learning units. Come join me and hundreds of your entrepreneur architect friends at entrearchitect.com/join. Enroll today at entrearchitect.com/join. Thanks for listening today. Love, learn, and share what you know.